My name is Patrick Donnelly, and I'm on a mission to build better leaders. Chief Master Sgt. Tina Timmerman, or T2 as she's known, is one of the senior-most enlisted members in the United States Space Force. Unlike some leaders who came into the space business from elsewhere, Chief Timmerman has been a space professional since she joined the Air Force in 1996. As a result, she brings a helpful perspective on the evolution of the Space Force and the constant effort to build better Space Force leaders at every level. The passion she brings to her mission, the care she feels for her guardians, and the candid nature of our discussion made it easy for me to see why the U.S. Space Force values her leadership so highly. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure her wisdom will have a positive impact on you too. So, stand by for launch. T-2 for T2. Chief Master Sergeant Timmerman, thanks so much for joining us on Building Better Leaders.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here this morning.
So I met you as I was trying very hard to be able to come and teach our leader development workshops at Vandenberg Space Force Base. And you were instrumental, first of all, in helping make that happen. So I'm very grateful for that. And then we've had an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit over time. And I just sense that, boy, if there's somebody that I could have a chat with about the Space Force and continuing that development of the Space Force, that you were one of those people I thought it'd be great to have on the show. So thanks so much for being here. I look forward to this conversation with you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I was excited too. You're right. Our paths crossed, and but we were able to get it over the finish line. And I will tell you, the feedback that I have received from that opportunity that you brought to Vandenberg has been wildly successful. And they're like, how can we get this again? And so I know that this is something that General Shest and I have been discussing, and we'll probably try to figure out, again, an opportunity to bring that professional development back to Vandenberg for another round of our leaders and members that weren't able to attend. And, obviously with the PCS season and cycle, we have new people come in. And so we were always just looking for opportunities for our airmen and guardians to be exposed to different ways to think about leadership. So I appreciate what you did.
Well, thank you so much. It's funny, sometimes people will ask me with regard to the workshops, do you ever go back and do a round 2 or a round 3? Like, how do you go deeper? And I said, well, one of the interesting things about the military is that if you go once a year, you'll find that 25 to 30% of the people that were there the last year have moved on somewhere else. And so it really has been, we have been so busy with just giving that level 1 and trying to broaden the exposure as much as possible that we've had a difficult time moving into that second layer. But hopefully someday we'll be able to do that. And I appreciate those words. This is a job that is so rewarding because you sense that the material is such that it's really making a difference. And so it's nice getting back on the plane and feeling like, boy, people really valued the experience there.
Absolutely. So. And it's true. They really did, because we got written feedback and comments, and the SELs within our organization have absolutely come back and talked about it. So great. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that. So, our listeners come from a broad background. I interviewed somebody not too long ago, and when I was using the term guardian, they weren't even sure, what does that mean? Who are you talking about? And so before we jump into some of the more substantive conversation, can you just tell people a little bit about who Tina Timmerman is and how did you get to where you are now and sort of what your role is there at S4S at Vandenberg Space Force Base?
Yeah, so who's Tina Timmerman? Well, I'm not only the command senior enlisted leader, but, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, a family member, all of those things that are wrapped up into each and every one of us in the military, right? And just being the command senior enlisted leader is one part of it, but you are able to draw on all of your other experiences to make you the person that you are. So I come from a small town in South Dakota, Rapid City, South Dakota. It had Ellsworth Air Force Base there. And after I graduated, I started college and went for about a year and a half, and it just wasn't resonating with me yet. I knew I wanted a college degree, but it wasn't the time, I don't think. And so because I did have exposure to an Air Force base and I knew some airmen in the Air Force, they talked to me to go and talk to a recruiter, and so I did. And I joined the Air Force as a space systems operator. This is the only thing I've done. And I tell the story when, after I graduated and went to tech school at Vandenberg, we were sitting there and talking that one day, like, this is no joke, that I wasn't going to be in the Air Force anymore and I was going to be in a Space Force. I called home and said, I don't think I'm going to be in the Air Force anymore. I think they're telling me I'm changing services, right? Because you're brand new, you don't know, right? And of course, that didn't happen until way later in my career, but it has been always something that's been planted in my mind. And when the opportunity came for me to transition, it just made sense, right? And I have been so blessed to have worked in pretty much every mission area that we have in the Space Force. I have done satellite command and control. I've done AOC a couple of times where you're integrating and planning at an Air Operations Center. I've been a first sergeant. I have had the opportunity to work at a MAGCOM and do AO level work and functional management work. And as I progressed from being a frontline supervisor to an NCOIC to a flight chief to a superintendent, I've just really been able to have all of these different experiences that I think just over time has allowed me to come to the position where I'm at now, right? Taking all of the mission areas that we have and then integrating them into an operational warfighting headquarters has just been an amazing experience.
It's a great story. It's funny to me that the Space Force is now, 6 years old?
Coming up on our birthday in December,
Coming up on 6 years old. But all the way back in your tech school, they were already planting, one day we're going to be a Space Force.
One day.
And you got to see that happen. And I love the fact that your background, first of all, you're a career space operator, which is rarer and rarer, I think.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've done so much, I would think, makes you the perfect Chief Master Sergeant. You not only understand it, but you've actually done it. And I find, having been a commander and having a chief that's really understands the job makes everything so much easier. So sounds like you're the exact right person for the job.
Oh, well, thank you. I try very hard to make sure that our guardians and our airmen and our soldiers and our sailors and Marines and everyone, our coalition partners and our allies are taken care of, right? That's really my focus on Space Force's space, is to make sure that the health, welfare, and morale is there in place for our team, and then be the best advisor that I can possibly be on mission execution. Because as a guardian, that is really what the SIMSIF and the CSO has asked from our senior leaders, right? I'm there to make sure that our people are taken care of, but I'm there to make sure that the mission is executed. And we have really strived that we have to be Chief Master Sergeants that are operationally credible. And General Chess has been a great partner in making sure that I'm in the room. And even just access, right? To have the ability to have leadership support you, to be in the room at the table and working there holistically as a partnership is a great experience, and I'm just so lucky to be where I'm at.
Well, so I am a fan of General Chess. We've interviewed him before, and he and I work together, and I trust him implicitly. So if he says you need to be in the room, there's no doubt in my mind you need to be in the room. But you mentioned something there that I think is worth highlighting. Again, I don't think a lot of people understand. As the Space Force came into its own, there was a deliberate effort to receive people from other services who might want to change. And so in addition to just the complications that would go anytime as you forge a new service, you've got a lot of different people with experience from a lot of different services and cultures, and you're melding them all into this new entity that we call a Space Force. General Raymond and I talked not long ago, and he was saying when they were first standing up the Space Force, they recognized the importance of creating a unique culture.
Yep.
I'm curious, from the time General Raymond was working those initial thoughts and putting some of the initial cultural pieces into play, what are you doing still? What are the leaders of Space Force doing still to further develop that sense of culture, that unique identity that's so important?
Yeah, so I think, inherently, the Space Force works in every domain, right? We support every domain that we have, and we have always supported, whether we were in the Air Force or when we stood up the Space Force, we have always supported the joint warfighter in our mission and execution.
Right.
So it just made absolute sense that when we stood up the Space Force, that we would want to have inter-service transfers coming over from our other services, because they have exposure to those domains.
Right.
And then to bring in their experiences, their level of expertise, to blend that to what we were doing at Air Force Space Command, and then moving that over into being an actual service, you couldn't have blended that any better, right? But I don't think culture is just made explicitly on a timeline, right? There's no poem to culture, right? I don't have a date for being fully mission capable.
Fully culturally capable.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't, that it just, that doesn't work, right? But what we do is to listen to the CSO, listen to the SIMSIFs, enforce their vision, and really, they put out the Guardian spirit, right? And in the Guardian spirit, one of the things that we have in there is our commitments. And it fully goes over our values, our core values, and it has all of our I statements in it, right? And those I statements come from whether you're a team member or a team leader. And we look at that and we say, hey, I'm committed to this as a leader, and I'm committed to this as a team member. And I really think just having that document just be our foundational area that we work on to implement culture is completely different than what the other services are doing.
Okay.
And I absolutely, I use it with my members that I supervise, and it just is a start of our feedback, and it's a start of where we say, hey, I'm going to be committed to you as a guardian. And I think that's one of the ways that we're really getting after building a unique Space Force culture.
So, just so I understand, there's, depending on where you sit in the chain of command, and with very few exception, everybody is both a leader and a team member. And a team member. But depending on the role that you're talking about, there's a documenter that lays out very clearly, in this role, this is what you get from me. This is what I am assuring you of in my role. And then there is a complementary role from the leader coming back down, and this is what you get from me. I think that sounds like a really interesting, by laying it out and being very clear about that, it sets expectations. I think there's sometimes in organizations, we have the right idea, we have this great approach, but we're not intentional about actually making that happen. It's a great piece of paper, but what does it mean? It sounds to me like Space Force is actively trying to make sure that agreement is something that we are holding to, and we are basically enforcing.
Absolutely. And I think it's more than a piece of paper, right? It starts with the piece of paper because that starts the conversation. But now it's up to me, in my position, to actually do something with it, right? You got to take that piece of paper and make it operational. And the one thing that I think that I've been able to do with the support of my senior leaders, and since I've been a chief, every officer I've worked for, when I've just gone and talked to them and said, hey, I have an idea of how I want to professionally develop some of the enlisted force, right? Or how I want to work with our CGOs. They've always been very supportive to my ideas because you lay out stuff with facts and data, right? And when you say, hey, I would like to have a professional development opportunity, and I would like to take our enlisted out of the office for the next three hours, right? And we're going to do an all-call, and we're going to bring in a guest speaker, and we're going to go over our S notes from General Chess, and we're going to go over, the new all of our new fitness stuff that's come out, our new dress and appearance, both Air Force and Space Force. And then on top of that, we're going to go do a team building experience, right? That's on me as the Command Senior Enlisted Leader to make sure that I am developing my replacements. Because I'm not going to be here forever, and I need them to come up and be confident in their abilities to execute mission and leadership. Yeah. And so, I've been very lucky in all the positions that I have had, whether I was working at the National Reconnaissance Office or when I was the Star Delta P, when we were just building STARCOM, my officer counterparts and my commanders have always allowed me to have those opportunities to be deliberate in development of our members.
Wow, you touched on something that as I've gone around and taught these courses, I think the most overlooked piece of good leadership is the intentional development piece. So since you brought it up, let's just talk about that a little more, because I love the fact that you said it has to be deliberate. It has to be deliberately done. When I think about the 3 essentials of leadership, and we have this model we use called lead, develop, and care. Lead is pretty easy to see when you're not doing because it's the mission.
Yep.
If the mission is failing, there's a lead problem. If care is failing, then people are very unhappy and weird things start happening and people start suffering. And so that's pretty obvious. But develop is that thing that in a short assignment cycle, as long as you're doing the mission and taking care of the people, you can almost get away with not doing development. And so it's the thing that I think sometimes we just forget. And the primary reason is because we're super busy.
Right.
How do you, you're a chief, so I know you're busy. I know that's not like, I've got 6 hours a day just to go develop. How do you manage all of the things that you have to do from a mission perspective and still do that intentional development?
I rely very heavily on my other senior enlisted advisors and my other senior enlisted leaders. Full empowerment, right? I have to trust that while I am out on a TDY, I always pick someone to sit my seat. So right now back at Vandenberg, there is someone who's right there that everyone in the command knows that they can go to this person because I'm not there physically, but someone can be there and they can fill that position and they can execute the mission, and I've given them full empowerment. I need someone to be able to make decisions if I'm not right there, right? And I need someone to help with the staff and be that execution arm. And if I don't build and have deliberate, intentional moments for them to go up into a position that they don't normally fill, how are they ever going to be given that exposure, right? And they have to be uncomfortable. Because you grow the most when you are uncomfortable. And it's hopefully my trust in them and me saying, I absolutely trust you and I know that you can do this, that they're going to execute and they're going to be fine. Now, I'm always the lifeline, right? They can call, they can email, they can get a hold of me, right? Yeah. But that is another part of deliberate, intentional development that has to happen within our force.
So knowing that there's going to be times where I'm away, there's going to be times when, whether I'm away or just maybe I have life happens and I need to be outside the office. When you give somebody the authority to sit, you're actually giving them the authority to do that job. It's not you answer the phone and relay to me. You're actually saying, you've got the stick.
Absolutely. I give exactly what every other leader gives, left and right bounds. This is, you can sign this, you can sign that. These are your left and right bounds, and if you get something where you are just not comfortable with, no, yeah, absolutely, reach out. But if I don't trust and empower my other NCOs and senior NCOs, they're never gonna grow, and then that's on me, and that's a failure of leadership on me.
And like you said, having the opportunity to sit in that seat and do those roles for a period of time better prepares them for success when they have a chance to be in that role full time.
Absolutely.
It's almost like the football team, and when you're 50 points ahead, you put in the second string quarterback to get them some reps out on the field.
That's right.
It actually is preparing them for the moment that they may do that for real.
Absolutely.
So I think that's great. Sometimes development is just thinking about who can I give opportunity to. Sometimes I think we have this sense of, well, development means I need to actually sit down and I need to come up with a 10-lesson plan approach to building a skill, and that is necessary sometimes. But sometimes development is as simple as what opportunity is out there that I can put somebody in that, as you say, makes them a little more uncomfortable, stretches them a little bit so they see maybe this is an area I need to grow, and then giving them the authority to go do.
Absolutely.
And the top cover if something goes wrong, that this is on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really great. I think if more people would be thinking from the perspective with development of what needs to be done, in other words, what do I need to be doing? Is there somebody in the process in the process of me doing that, is there somebody I can be developing? And sometimes that's just, hey, I want you to sit here and watch this. I want you to come with me. Sometimes it's, okay, now I want you to do it.
Right.
But what you're talking about is that deliberate, that intentionality that's so critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great example. Sounds like you're an exemplar to help people then pass that same priority on to their subordinates.
Absolutely.
That's great. Let's move into the care aspect a little bit, because this is something that, again, I see pretty much everywhere we go, whether it's airmen, guardians, civilians, people outside the military. I think a lot of people find themselves really wrestling with this concept of care.
Right.
And rightly so. I think the Air Force, the Space Force has been very emphatic that caring for our airmen and guardians is something that we're responsible for doing. In my perspective, I think we could do a better job of explaining, what do we mean by care?
Right.
What does care look like? What's a healthy perception of care?
Right.
And so I want to get into the idea of accountability and feedback. Okay. I believe holding someone accountable and giving people really candid feedback is an aspect of care.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. Care comes in all forms, right? Honest feedback, I think, is the one place where, people sometimes just become uncomfortable, because sometimes your honest feedback is not positive. And if you have to deliver possibly, something that's maybe not the most positive, I think it's on the leader to be very thoughtful about how they're going to have that conversation. You have to have data, have facts, have examples. You can't just walk in with I think or I feel this has happened, because that does nothing for you as a leader, and it does nothing for them for their development or for their growth. Because if you can't point out what you're really trying to get after, or that root cause, then that feedback section is not going to go very well. And I'd also like, sometimes the feedback session starts with, are you okay? Because a lot of times we see something falter in someone, but maybe we also don't know what's going on at home.
Right.
And so, is this their normal?
Yeah.
Did we step back, take a breath, and before we go and talk to them, have we actually had the conversation and said, hey, I have seen on this day you didn't do what you normally do.
Right.
What is going on? Because if you haven't built trust and a rapport with your rater or ratee, that relationship is just going to be, top level, right? There's going to be no depth there. And if you think about how much time we spend with our coworkers, sometimes it's more than with our families.
Yeah.
And so it's on us to truly know who our people are, right? Because again, superficial feedback is not going to be helpful. When I was a first sergeant, right, a lot of times I'm delivering maybe feedback that's not positive.
Right.
And it really opened my eyes to how to deliver that message a little bit differently, right? We would talk about what's going on with you, what is the root cause of this particular issue,
Right.
and you would find out more than not something else was really going on that ended up being the reason why the member didn't get to work on time or they didn't execute the thing, right? But as a senior leader, it is my responsibility to uphold standards, and I have to make sure that our enterprise is executing the mission of our members at the highest standards. Yesterday, right, Chief Bentavania in his keynote speech specifically talked about we are such a small force that we have no room but to have elite senior NCOs and an elite force, right? And I have to be able to help execute that vision.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. And, part of care, like you just said, is what is the expectation? This is the expectation, and I care enough about you to help you reach this level.
That's right.
It's almost like a parent, my role is to help you get to where you need to be most effective. But what you said, I think, is great, because you're not just looking at output and saying, this is where we needed you to be, your output is here, therefore this is a negative conversation. In order to know why did that output happen, I need to know the person first. I need to know what may be going on there. If I'm going to address that and figure out how best to correct it, I need to know what's really going on, which presupposes that I know who you are.
Yeah.
I know who you are well enough to know when there's a change. What's your normal? Is this normal or is this abnormal?
Yeah.
If you don't know that, you're just guessing.
Yep.
The other thing that I love that you said, and I think this is something that leaders everywhere could do a better job with in giving feedback. Feedback shouldn't just be, like you said, I sense, I think, I'm unhappy because, and then it's all very vague.
Right.
If you can give people very specific, concrete areas where I think this because of this.
Yep.
You performed this way, you should have performed this way. That takes some of the personal out of it.
Right.
It's objective. You're judging me based on something objective. I can see that. I may agree or disagree, but at least I know this is where that's coming from. And it's not just, you don't like my personality, or you don't like my haircut, or whatever it is. That gives me something I can actually fix.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times when people struggle with the idea of giving candid feedback, it's because they haven't done that work.
100%. And I will say it's been interesting, right? When I was younger, I would get written feedback, right? It was very common to get written feedback. Then, at one point in time, we, implemented that into, hey, when did you receive your feedback? And they had to put it on your performance report and those kind of things. And then people, and so, but then as we consistently move up in rank, sometimes you don't get that feedback, right? And so it has been interesting to watch. And because of that, my take is every person that works for me I have to give them written feedback. I'm giving them verbal feedback, probably an informal feedback every day, just because we're having conversations.
Right. It's when feedback's actually most helpful,
right,
as it's happening.
But I also know that it's my responsibility to give written feedback, because how are they supposed to know where my expectations are if I've never truly given them something to reference?
Right.
And so then if they do fall short, well, is that on them or is that on me?
Yeah, shouldn't be a surprise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I ask all of our members, if you're a rater, you need to do written feedback. You have to give your troops, your guardians, your airmen something to strive for.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to lay out, what is the target? This is where I need you to be. And if I don't ever know that, then I don't know if I'm there or not.
They're not. And I think, one of the areas that really sometimes struggle is, sometimes it's easy to know your bottom third. It's probably okay. It's pretty easy to know your top third. But how do you get at that middle third that really needs some extra care and development? But you don't want to, leave out the top or the bottom either, right? And it's finding ways to make sure that you are looking for opportunities holistically for everyone. It's really on you as a leader to say, what can I give to this person, wherever they fall, because everyone deserves opportunity.
Yeah, man, you hit on so many great things. I'm going to have to recruit you to come teach with us, because you talked a lot about being individual in the way. It's not, I can't just give a big hand wave and everybody gets the same feedback. It needs to be very individually focused. Laying out that expectation and putting it in writing. I think sometimes as leaders, we think we've communicated. We think we have communicated where somebody can get better, but we don't actually know if the person has received it, if they've heard what and so they're surprised, and then we're surprised because we think we've shared it. By putting it in writing, I think you help make that more concrete. And then if they don't understand something, they have something clear, black and white, that they can come and have a discussion with you about. The other thing I think was great that you said was the idea of, there's kind of three different groups. You said top third, middle, and bottom third. I like to call them strivers, survivors, and strugglers.
I like it.
And I think, honestly, developing strugglers is probably the easiest one for leaders to think about, because there's a very clear gap. I need you to be performing here. You're not performing here. There's a development opportunity. Your survivors are people who are, they're generally doing the job. Not anything amazing, but they're getting it done. And your strivers are the ones that are just doing amazing things with very little oversight from you. I think the hardest group of people to develop are your strivers. I often think the people that we neglect most often with regards to development is the people who are just doing amazing things. And I think we owe it to them. As you said, we owe it to our amazing performers to help them be even better. Sometimes that's just opportunity. Hey, let me put you in a place that allows that spotlight to shine a little bit more, allows you to stretch and perform in a different way. But that's hard to do, because in the midst of everything else you're doing, to develop someone that's already really good requires you to think.
Oh, it does. It does, 100%. But I do agree with you, right? It is probably an area that maybe gets neglected because we know that they're going to just perform what we need them to do. I look at it a little bit differently, though. In some ways, it's I'm giving them some probably opportunities that we wouldn't give other people, but I really ask them a lot. If I have a really high-performing member, I bring them in and I say, hey, I really need your help on this person who's maybe my survivor. I try to recruit them to look down while
fantastic.
They're continuing to look up and out, right? Because they probably have the bandwidth that they just didn't know because we're giving them a lot of maybe mission-focused stuff.
Right.
Okay, that's great. They're doing exceptional stuff on the mission. But I actually ask them to recruit sometimes and say, hey, who can you take under your wing to bring them up? Because I can't do it all, right? And nor could General Chess or my previous commanders, right? There's too many people in the organization. And it goes back to that empowerment, that trust, that what culture am I trying to establish for our command, for our Space Force? Well, it's one of being a team.
Yeah. That's so good. You're the first person that I've heard sort of articulate it that way, but I think that's great. We're thinking oftentimes in the Space Force and Air Force, we're thinking when it comes to develop, we're thinking about skills, technical skills. Do you have the technical skills? And once somebody is technically proficient, sometimes they just get the check. But what you're talking about is how do I develop you? How do I develop your people skills? How do I develop your leadership? And refocusing them, okay, you're a great technician. How do I make you a great leader? Means that discomfort of, I want you to partner with somebody and help bring them up.
Yeah.
That's a completely different skill set.
It is. And I trust in the Space Force very much to make skilled guardians. We are very good at that. We've been doing that the whole time we were in the Air Force. When we broke up, we are going to have skilled, excellent technicians, tacticians.
Yeah.
That is what we do. We are the greatest Space Force. I have no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Our culture is to build a team. And so if I trust you to absolutely execute your mission technically and proficiently, because that's what we have built, because we've given you access to exercises, access to schools, access to different professional development opportunities within, industry engagements, all, AFITs, go to school, get your second master's degree. The things that we're giving you from the military, from the Space Force, is already been laid out. So now I have to come in and figure out where those gaps are. And that's really what you're asking our senior leaders to do, is to really put out an area for mission, but how do I supplement with what we have within the command? And that's my goal.
Yeah, that's great, because space has traditionally been a very technically focused service. And I see that same thing in industry. We spend a lot of money making really great technicians. And then sometimes those industries take those technicians and say, well, you're a really good technician. That means you're going to be a really good leader.
Yeah.
And those two skills are actually very different.
Different, yeah.
And we wonder at the point where we just throw someone into a leadership role, gosh, you were so good at this. Why are you not similarly good at this?
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying is very good. And when I think about somebody who's moved to the top of their career as you have, what's the difference between somebody who stops short of that and someone who keeps moving?
Yeah.
It's usually not a technical aspect of their job. It usually has something to do with their ability to lead other people, to work well as a team and to move a team forward. And that, I think, when it comes to how do we get a competitive advantage?
Yes.
And in the Space Force, it's very small. You need all the competitive advantage you get. It's the leadership piece. If we can make better leaders, we already know how to make technicians. If we can make better leaders, we're going to be a service that really can accomplish all the goals that we've set for ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, such good words. Well, hey, Chief Timmerman, I think we could talk for a long time. I've really enjoyed this, and you've brought up some just amazing points that I'm going to be referencing in our future classes. I'm going to say, if you don't believe me, go check out our podcast with Chief Timmerman, because she says the same thing. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for all that you do. And thanks for your deliberate efforts in building better leaders.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, this was wonderful. And thanks for allowing me to be here and just love on my S4S team and all of my other guardians. This has just been a wonderful experience, and I appreciate you, Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to Building Better Leaders. If you'd like to learn more about the Doolittle Leadership Center or the Leader Development Workshops we deliver all around the world, please visit us at afa.org/DLC. Helping you become a better leader is our passion and our purpose.